What is going on, my beautiful LARPers and LARPettes? Are you still on the 2011 or the double stack 1911 hype train? Well, I have another double stack 1911 right here in front of me, the brand new Watchtower Firearms Apache. Now, those of you that don't know who Watchtower Firearms are, I did do a review on the Type 15, which is their rifle. They are formerly known as F1 Firearms. So those of you that don't know who F1 Firearms are, they used to make these very crazy looking skeletonized AR-15s, and I still think they're making these skeletonized receivers or something. That might be a special order or something, I don't know. But F1 Firearms are now Watchtower Firearms, and they just started dabbling into the double stack 1911 market. Now, this isn't the first one that came out. The first one that came out is the PewView edition, which is essentially the same exact gun, just different milling on it. But let's go over all the features on the Watchtower Apache. Now, starting right at the front here, you get a single port compensator that is threaded onto the barrel. I haven't really seen a benefit to having the compensator threaded onto the barrel as opposed to having a full one-piece compensated barrel. Kind of like the Staccato XC here, you'll notice that the compensator is one connected piece with this barrel itself. But as far as the whole recoil mitigation muzzle flip ordeal that they're trying to go for here, this is a very similar recoil feel to the XC. But if you'd like to see like a versus video between ported 2011s, let me know and I could do a versus between that and like my Sam Viper and this one, and I believe I have another one. So compensated threaded barrel on this one, extremely flat shooting. And moving on back to the slide itself, you have a nice tri-cut slide, and it goes and blends in directly into that compensator itself. It's extremely flush fitting with that compensator, and you also have extremely aggressive slide serrations there and aggressive rear slide serrations on that. Now, I really appreciate how deep they make the cuts here. A lot of people won't really like that just because it protrudes a lot more than an actual traditional, like maybe cut back here where it's not protruding a lot. Just because the coating that's on this 2011 or this double stack 1911, this is a PVD coated slide and barrel and basically everything else. So this is what they call their graphite PVD coating, and this is their copper PVD coating, which gives it kind of like that brownish look. This coating is extremely slick, which has a couple of benefits but a couple of downsides, right? So the benefit is going to be that it's durable. You can't scratch this. Like when I first got it, I thought I was going to be able to scratch it a lot easier, but it's very hard to scratch this thing. As well as the coating itself is extremely slick, where if it gets dirt, grease, debris, whatever you want to call it, it's gonna wipe right off of that. And that's the same coating that they're putting onto these bolt carrier groups right there on the older F1s and on their basically their new Type 15 rifles and stuff like that. So really beneficial to have this coating on your gun, but also the downside is it's extremely slick. So if you don't have really good serrations on it, you're gonna be sliding all over the place, which this one, I had no issues racking it from the front there. So it's only if you're really gonna grab it from the middle of it, but they put those serrations all the way back. And this is the biggest difference between the Apache PewView edition and this one here. You got these straighter serrations here as opposed to those other serrations that the PewView edition. But on the PewView edition, it was still super aggressive on that too. Now moving on to the sights, you get a nice green fiber optic front and a blacked out rear that is integrated into the optic plate itself. This optic plate is for an RMR footprint. I really like when they black out the rear and give me a fiber optic front. That's like the general I run that on all my guns. Moving on down, you have a toolless guide rod assembly, or the toolless recoil assembly from Dawson Precision here. I think this is a staple to have in any 2011 or double stack 1911. Sometimes when you don't have that toolless guide rod assembly there, it becomes a little bit of a pain in the ass, right? So It just makes it easier to disassemble your gun and clean it and put it back together without fighting with that spring popping out on you or any of that sort of stuff. So really nice option that they're giving you that from the factory with this Watchtower Apache. Now, they do give you a 7, an 8, and a 9-pound spring, a recoil spring for that. Those of you that don't know, that are getting into compensated 2011s or double stack 1911s, you do sometimes have temperamental guns when it comes to shooting certain ammo and certain weights and all that stuff. So you kind of have to do some minor tuning to the ammo that you're shooting. But with that said, I did shoot 115 grain Supervel ammo, and I had zero problems shooting 115 grain through this. Moving on down, you have the full-length dust cover that fits nice and flush in front of that compensator, and it also has a 1913 accessory rail at the bottom, so you can mount your lights, lasers, and all that stuff you want to mount. Right here, you have your slide lock, slide release that feels a little bit more extended than your average 1911, 2011 slide release here. But again, I don't really have an issue with loading a magazine and pressing that on any other ones, but this one just feels a little bit more flattened out compared to some of them that are like more of a downward angle. Really nice touch, but I'll get back into this towards the end of the video. There was something that I did have an issue with this thing here. Moving on back from that, you have your extended manual safety, and it is also ambidextrous, and that being so wide like that just definitely helps out when you're trying to rest your thumb on there and drive that gun. I just really like that, and I like that it's extended on both sides. It doesn't really get in my way. I used to think that it would get in my way of my knuckle just by the way it's just laying right on that knuckle there, but I don't really feel it when I'm shooting, and it just feels a lot better than your average manual safety where it sits a little bit more flush. Moving on back from the safety, you do get a beautiful skeletonized hammer there. That is skeletonized all the way around. Usually you'll see a skeletonized portion in the middle, but you do have cut out at the top and at the bottom there. Also, you're getting a pretty much standard grip safety here as well. Moving on to the trigger, it is a nice aluminum flat face trigger that has this really trick design on it, but it's sitting, I would guess, right at about 4 pounds-ish. On the website it claims from 3 to 4, but I'm thinking it's more on the heavier side on this one. It just, yeah, I would think it's like a 4. Really nice trigger overall. I can get pretty good splits on this guy. I would probably drop the weight a little bit lower if I was going to shoot this in a competition. I'd probably drop it down to like the 3-pound weight or something like that. But let's give this trigger a little dry fire here. So let me show you guys the reset, and hopefully I can get a good video for that. This is just a pull here, so you get very little play there. You hit that wall. But yeah, hopefully you saw that. If not, I'll throw in some B-roll footage there. Moving on back, you do get your just standard magazine release here that is threaded, so you can put on an extension. Not a lot of people know, just because they're picking up the staccatos and all that stuff, they don't come with this sort of threaded hole here, but you can add a little piece on here that does extend it out. I really don't run those extensions just because I do have the habit of pushing that magazine release and the magazine falling out. Really nice option to have though if you're able to work around that. Now moving on to the grip, it is made out of a composite material, or basically plastic, and you do have the Watchtower logo on the left and the right side. As far as the texturing goes, it is pretty aggressive where I'm not getting any slippage issues, but it's also not too aggressive where I'm like getting blisters from the amount of shooting I've been doing. But I think it's a very well made grip, and I'm glad that they're kind of going the full distance and getting something, either, I don't know if it's a private label made, if somebody else is making these grips, or if they're making them in-house, but as far as putting their own logos and making it their own, they are doing a good job on making a full Watchtower build. Usually a company that's starting off by making a gun that they've never made before, they'll kind of just skip those steps and they'll just put somebody else's grip on here and don't even change logos or anything like that, and just put a gun together essentially and sell it, make enough money to start making their own. But they are doing a good job on branding this whole gun. Moving on down, you do get a nice aluminum flared magwell that makes for extremely easy and fast reloads, but it's not too flared out where you're getting a full-blown like competition gigantic magwell where it's kind of like throwing a hot dog down a hallway. But this one, I think it's a nice blend between the two. I believe they call this like their tactical magwell or something like that. So this style is more of my preferred style compared to like the giant competition magwells out there. And lastly, you get a 20 round magazine as well as a 17 round magazine in the box. So what's included with the case, you get the case, a lock, the optic plate, and you also have an option of purchasing an SRO with this and they'll mount it for you, and the 3 springs. So that's pretty much what you're getting with this gun when you buy it. Now that pretty much does it for the features on the Watchtower Firearms Apache here. I shot around, I would say close to 1,000. I don't think I shot 1,000 because, well, I know I didn't shoot 1,000 because I have a ammo can that had 1,000 rounds in it, and I feel like I have like 100 and 100 or 150 in there. So I would guesstimate 850 to 900 rounds around there of Supervel 115 grain. And thank you to Supervel for sponsoring this video, as well as the channel for the official ammo sponsor of the Gatman. So close to 1,000 rounds to this guy. As far as the reliability aspect though, there's a couple of things here. So a company that has been making 2011s for years, right? They kind of get a reputation of they're either making a bad 1911 or 2011 or a really good one. Generally, you'll go straight to like a staccato or something like that. But Watchtower being so fresh into the double stack 1911 game, I can't really speak for the long-term reliability just because I want to get a lot more rounds behind this thing before I actually say, hey, yeah, this gun it's keeping up with all the big hitters out there. But as far as the issues that I've had with this one, I only really had one issue with this. So I had an issue with this slide release here. This, not this exact one, but this one right here. So this is the original one that it came with in the gun. It had an issue of locking back basically prematurely or when it didn't need to. So usually when you have a magazine in there and it runs dry, it'll lock back, right? That's what it's intended to do. But with this one here, magazine in or magazine out, I was having the issue of it just not locking back whenever the hell it felt like it. And it was usually a good amount of times during like 1 or 2 mags. So it would lock back pretty often. As soon as I figured out that it was the slide release that was causing the malfunctions, because the first thing that I went to was the magazines, but I tried the magazines in my other 2011s and they didn't have issues in those guns. So I was like, okay, well maybe it's the gun itself that's having the issue. So I was checking it out, racking it back and forth, and when I racked it once, it locked back with nothing in it. So I was like, huh, that's weird. So I looked at it and paid attention to this one here, and maybe I can get you a good video of it, but there's a little piece that it kind of just rides right underneath the slide, and that cutout portion where the slide locks into when it's empty. That portion there was just cut a little bit too short, so if the recoil or any type of tapping on that thing, it would tap up and just lock it back. So I contacted Watchtower, I told them about the issue, and they overnighted me one, and I no longer have that issue. So as far as the reliability goes for my 800 or 900 rounds, I think at least a good maybe 50-ish around there would probably be malfunctioning because of that problem. But as soon as I figured it out there and I didn't have that slide lock there, I just held down the original slide lock, this one here. I just held it down with my thumb and shot the rest of the rounds that way. So I would just keep my thumb here while I was shooting, and it worked completely fine from there. So as far as reliability, I still need to test this a lot more, but I don't think I'm going to have any issues because I already resolved the issue that I was having, which was this slide lock. But that doesn't mean that something else could go wrong in it. Maybe I'll go 5,000 rounds or something like that and give you guys an update and let you guys know what, if any issues arise from there or not. Aside from that, it's a really beautiful looking gun. The fit and finish is great. I like how smooth that action feels. The trigger feels great. The compensator works. Everything on this gun screams high end without that extremely high end price. So comparing this compensated double stack 1911 that looks like that whole integral, internally compensated package there. I don't really know what to call it, but the compensator that's flush fit with the accessory rail and all that. You have the Staccato XC, you have the Terran Tactical Sand Viper, you have the Nighthawk Custom Sandhawk, you have the Phoenix Trinity, I don't know what, and then you also have the Atlas Air, I don't know, Ares, Erebus, whatever the hell it's called. You got all those guns, and if you're looking at each one of those prices, you're going from around $7,000 all the way around to, which was the cheapest option that I thought was the Staccato XC, which is like around $4,400 base price, depending on what you're getting on that. This is coming around $4,000, so I think sub $4,000, so $39.90 or somewhere around there. And I think you're getting a whole lot for that price if you're trying to put it against those other compensated models in this category. So if you look at it in that way, I think you are getting the more budget-friendly option of the double stack 1911 compensated lineups. I think that's also a huge plus from Watchtower, that they are giving you a more affordable version of these compensated 1911s right out of the gate. They could have just made a brand new gun and said, hey, let's hike them up to $7,000 and hope people buy them and stuff like that. So I really like that they're giving, it's not a budget option, but it's also a cheaper option compared to the more expensive options, you know? So overall, what do you think about the Watchtower Apache? Do you think it's going to be a huge hit in this industry, or do you think it's just another double stack 1911 that's too hyped up, you know? I personally really love 2011s, double stack 1911s, and I don't think I'm ever gonna stop shooting them. And I'm glad that I got this guy in my hands to shoot and test out for you guys. I really enjoy shooting these guns. So thank you all so much for sticking around. I really appreciate you all, love you all. Catch you in the next one.